Hello, Flandy friends. Today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, Dungeons and Dragons. In particular, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite campaigns that I've been in with an absolute train wreck of a group called the Menagerie. Reason that this particular campaign is so important to me is because at the beginning, none of us knew each other. There was a Facebook ad that basically our local game shop wanted to start a D&D group. And we each signed up, got paired with a DM, and even though we were complete strangers at first, we all sort of became wonderful friends and have endured that friendship long after the campaign has ended. So this campaign just means a lot to me because of the friendships that came along with it, and I wanted to share that with you. So let's get into it. One of the first characters we have is Bellamy. She's a blood hunter lycanthrope. What that means is she can turn into a werewolf pretty much whenever she wants to. She's a pink tiefling who also turns into a pink werewolf with horns, and she is an absolute wild child. She likes to fight, loves to drink, and absolutely loves to cause chaos. She's got a bit of an adventurous spirit and reckless side to her, and just wants to kind of go and do all the time. Her other half is Trell. Trell is a literal scaredy cat, a Siamese tabaxi who is also a wild magic sorcerer. Now, what makes Trell sort of special, aside from the fact that, she's chaos incarnate, is the fact that the way we played, whenever she rolled a 1 at any time, wild magic went off. How that happened typically was because she was afraid or sneezed, and that meant she spent a lot of time in other planes or in other forms or, just absolutely destroying the story in an instant. And it was kind of great. Followed up on that, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have VS, a dragonborn barbarian. Normally we just call him V, though. V likes to fight and likes to kill, and he especially likes to fight and kill things that he has not fought and killed before. He's also sort of a secret softy, and he's a bit of a hoarder. We'll say that's prone to his dragon side of things. There are a few other characters that I'll mention as they come along, but the other two that are important for this particular section is Rokus. Rokus is an Aarakocra bard who is also a peacock. Very beautiful, very talented when it comes to singing, both in-game and out-of-game. There are many a times where he would bust into a song and, just kind of put himself on the spot because, Bard's got a bard. He was terrible at fighting, but he healed us and kept us alive, which, quite frankly, is more than any of us ever deserved at any point in time. Finally, there was Cassie. She's a changeling blade singer wizard. Basically, she was a child, 14 years old, and somehow the brains of the entire operation. She was often the one who helped the group get out of trouble or helped them figure out that the cursed item they were holding was in fact absolutely cursed. Yeah, it was an interesting group dynamic, but we made it work. So now that you know a little bit about the Menagerie and who the characters are, we're going to back up a bit, because the first real thing that the Menagerie ever did together was die. You see, technically the Menagerie wasn't our first adventuring group under this DM. We actually started out with a group called the Headhunters. The Headhunters were an eclectic group who ended up getting a mission from the king. That mission ended up involving them facing up against a vampire and an ancient black dragon at level 4. All of us had played D&D before, all of us knew the math. No way we should have fought that, so the logical thing to be would have been running, which is what the DM had planned to do, but what they say about DM plans and all is DM makes a plan, players make the DM cry. It's a circle of life. Because what ended up happening was a vampire charmed one of our companions. And, Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind. No one gets left behind means that we all died to a dragon breath attack. One turn. Everyone gone. And that was the end of the Headhunters. Thankfully, our DM was gracious, because we all still wanted to keep playing, and our DM clearly didn't have enough misery in his life. Because the DM listened to our pleas, and we were able to continue that campaign. Somewhat. I say somewhat because everyone was dead, sort of. You see, even though V had died by the dragon attack, he woke up later in a place surrounded by bodies. One of the bodies was a Siamese tabaxi who was laying on a operating table, pretty much like you'd expect in any sort of asylum horror movie. Above her was a doctor doing some weird harvesting stuff. And so V, even in a very weakened state, managed to get up and promptly bludgeon said doctor to death. Then, one failed con save later, V passed out and faded to black. What happened next was our group, the new Menagerie, found themselves all facing one another inside what looked like kind of a sewer area. Brief exchange happened where we introduce ourselves, kind of tell one about each other, kind of share some experiences and try to figure out what's going on here. And V, all the while, was just kind of staring at the Siamese tabaxi across from him, who he swore was dead. Going forward, we find ourselves in a sewer system full of various undead monstrosities. Our group gets ready to fight our way through, only to realize very quickly the zombies don't care about us. Not at all. We started walking our way through, examining them as we go, and it's at this point that Cassie the wizard kind of started putting things together. You see, the last thing Cassie really remembered was getting stabbed to death. Then she also remembered the specter of death appearing to her to claim her soul, only to let her know that there was no soul to be claimed. After conferring with the group, we all sort of realized that, yeah, we are all soulless. More than that, though, we all find out that we are being controlled by a necromancer. We find this out because a voice booms in our head. And with a commanding voice, it just tells us to stop. Just like that, all of our bodies are frozen. We can't move a muscle, we can't do anything. This vampire necromancer, the one that V's group had originally been sent to find out about, explained that we were his latest creations. He wanted to see what could be done with intelligent undead who still harbored powers of their past lives. That's why my wizard could still cast magic, our barbarian could still rage, our werewolf could still shift. We were undead, but we were a next generation of undead. The vampire wanted to unleash us onto this world and see what we could do, because no matter where we went, it could still see through our eyes, hear through our ears, and at a moment's notice, cause us to do its bidding. With that, we quickly escaped. Although escaped is kind of the strong sense, because really we were just let go. It takes us a while to get out of this sewer system, out into the open, and even longer to realize, despite traveling hours, we didn't feel tired, we didn't feel hungry, we didn't feel anything. We eventually make a small camp, and it's there that we actually take a moment to not really breathe, because we find out, hey, don't gotta do that anymore. But we take a moment to rest and really get to know each other in a sort of sense. Cassie reveals very quickly to the group that she is in fact a changeling, taking on various forms to kind of display what she can do. We also learn that Vias was previously with a group that had been investigating the vampire. We find out that Trell didn't really know what had happened to her. She just knew that she had died and was there. And Bellamy kind of kept to herself a little bit about what had happened to her. As we're going through this, before we can get any more information from the rest of the group, we hear a rustling sound. Something or someone is upon us. Bellamy tells Cassie, asking if she can change into anything more intimidating, and at the moment Cassie thinks, yeah, I'll turn into my biggest form. Which is Julius, a 9-foot-tall minotaur, rippling muscles, terrifying form, and the softest cardigan and just smallest little glasses on his snout that you can imagine. Because despite looking terrifying, Julius is a bit of a pacifist. But we'll get into Cassie and her entire issues later. The group marches forward, ready to fight and go on with whatever's going down here, only to find a terrified child staring up at the lot of us. The child says his dog is missing, he needs help, and he asks us for help. And we have a lot going on. We just recently found out that we're dead, both on the inside and the outside now, and that we're being controlled by a vampire necromancer. But, you know what? We've played RPGs. We know how it goes. Save a dog, kill God. You gotta go through the steps first. So we say, you know what, kid? Sure. Let's go. Let's find your dog. So we do end up following the kid a little bit, doing a little bit of tracking and exploration. As we go, we eventually find ourselves in front of a cave where an owlbear is being chased by two Eden who are trying to hunt it down and eat it. Soon as Eden see us, they think, oh hey, much easier prey, and a fight ensues. It's been a whopping hour and a half since our barbarian has managed to murder anything, so he is ready to go. Our group goes forward, and with a few hacks, a few slashes, and some well-placed magic, one of the Eden falls down dead. The other one is being grappled by a werewolf Bellamy, who's been enlarged by our wizard, while Trell is blasting it with a concentrated witch bolt. A lucky nat 20 from our sorcerer ends up in an explosion that blows it into chunks. Fine red mist all over the place, and we are just covered in guts and gore. Also, the Eden had a child that kind of went up into the air during the explosion and was promptly caught by one of our party members, and then promptly dropped as soon as they realized what they were holding. We do eventually end up, 5-second roll, pick up the kid, kind of carrying it with us. At this point, though, we realize we're out of magic, out of rages, low on hit points. The kid that had gotten us into this was just absolutely gone, and now we were monster parents. We go into the cave system, just trying to find some information, but honestly just trying to loot more than anything. And it's there that we discover the remnants of a child and his dog. Kind of sets the tone for the campaign, going forward. But it is what it is. Death is a part of life, and there's nothing more we could do at that point. The next closest city is Roth, which is the city that V originally started from with the original group, and so he recommends we head there. At the very least, it's a capital with plenty of magic, plenty of stuff. Maybe there's some way someone could help us. So our group heads on to Roth. On the way there, Cassie shifts out of her Minotaur form and into another form known as No. No is an adult half-elf, and Cassie does this for a myriad of reasons. One, she kind of wants to blend in and not seem too conspicuous. And two, No is old enough to drink, and that is going to be very important for surviving this campaign. Once we get into the town proper, all eyes seem to be on our tabaxi companion, as tabaxis are kind of rare there. More than one merchant comes up to us wondering if we'd be willing to sell her, as her pelt was beautiful and they had use for it. Bellamy considers it for a moment, but hey, we're not bad people. We wouldn't sell a person, so we decide, hey, no, we're not going to sell the cat. The cat's fine, she's with us, shoo. Instead, we sell the child. Yeah, we find a monster hunting guild and promptly sell the Eden baby for it. Pretty certain they're just going to raise it up to hunt it, or, I guess if there's a veal equivalent of Eden. But either way, we get a lot of gold for it, and yeah, no, later on we probably do go to hell just strictly because of that. But we get our gold, and then immediately blow it on the next shop we come across. The items of note from the next shop, one of them is very useful, one of them, quite frankly, defines our campaign for a little bit. Cassie gets a magical box that basically you put an item into it, and whoever puts the item into it is the only person that can then take the item out. So if I put an item into the box and then you open it up, it just looks like an empty box. Whereas when I open it up, it will reveal the item I had placed into it. Bellamy gets a stick of wild magic. I say stick, do not say wand, because this literally is just a stick. Looks like it fell off a tree, but it has charges of wild magic in it. The way our DM has wild magic, there was about 300 different things that could happen depending on various rolls of how good or how poorly you roll, which meant anything could happen from you becoming petrified, to you summoning forth a unicorn, to even you ascending to a godhood at one point. Yeah, that stick proved to be a nightmare on more than one scenario, and at the same time, I have never seen a player more giddy to get an item than Bellamy did when she got that stick. I don't know, though, if it's because it was wild magic or because it's a stick and she's a wolf, but either way, she was thrilled for it. As soon as we get outside, we find ourselves face to face with the King's Guard, who promptly escort us, rather roughly, to the king. Now, Via's had dealings previously with the king, and Cassie herself was no slouch when it came to royal decorum. So upon arriving, V bows, Cassie curtsies, and then the disaster group kind of step forward. Because Trell tries to curtsy and immediately falls over, hitting Rokas, who then falls over, and then hits Bellamy. So 3 of them on the floor while Cassie and V just kind of stare in awkward silence. The king demands to know what happened. He had sent this group off to find information, only for everything to go haywire, and now one of them returns, but with a completely different group. V explains that the original group, the Headhunters, had followed the vampire to this area, but were promptly murdered by the dragon. He smartly left out the fact that he too was murdered and we were all undead, because that would have gone poorly. The king listens to what's going on. He thanks V for telling him what had happened and explains, that V honestly had done well. He had given the king the location of the vampire, and while there's no guarantee that the vampire would remain there, it was something the king was going to look into. We thought the matter was going to be resolved, only for the king to smile and say, "Guards, take them to the dungeons." Now, I'll be honest. Did we deserve it? Yeah, probably. But he didn't know that. So we have no idea why we're suddenly being taken prisoner. But the answer to that is for the next series of this. In the next episode, we're going to discuss the fateful prison break, which set more things in motion, and we get to learn the answer to how many guards can be bludgeoned by a leg of lamb. Trust me, the answer may surprise you. That being said, guys, that's all for the first version of Menagerie Tales. I hope you like this first rendition, and hopefully I'll see you at the next one. Goodbye, Flandy friends. See ya!